guys are looking to put one of the Tesla displays in your F-150, well, this is the video for you. Now, I've had my Tesla screen for quite some time. I've got it dialed in pretty good, and I've made a couple other videos on this. I get comments and questions all the time on YouTube. I get emails all the time. It's like every day there's somebody asking questions, whether it be troubleshooting, setup tips, installation issues. So if you guys are looking to get one of these displays, I'm here to tell you that it comes with a couple quirks, but I absolutely love it, and I would never want to go back to my OEM screen. This isn't going to be an install video. I'll link that down below of the install video I already have, but this is just going to kind of point you guys in the right direction if this is something for you. Now, the installation on this is pretty easy. I've done this a couple times. The first time probably took me a little longer, but I also recorded a video. But I can probably knock one of these out in an hour, maybe a little less than an hour. But just take your time, there's no rush. Make sure you use the correct screws because you could damage the screen. And most Tesla style screens come with advanced features like Android Auto and wireless CarPlay. It also has the high resolution display. This one here is going to be a 2K screen. And since it's an Android based device, it has endless customizations, which is awesome. Installing one of these screens isn't too complex, but if you're a DIY enthusiast like myself, you'll just find that you'll throw this in and it's pretty easy. You can also pay a professional. I would just assume that pretty much any type of stereo shop is going to be able to put this in your car. But since the device is Android based, and that's all it's ever going to be. It's never probably going to be any other software, which I'm pretty content with as being an Apple user, and I absolutely love Apple iOS. The one thing I've found with the Android is the faster the processor, the smoother it is. And this does have an 8-core processor. To me, it runs pretty smooth. I don't really have any complaints. I don't really think it's laggy or anything like that. I think it's pretty smooth and consistent for the most part. Since this is Android based, you get the full app store. You can pull up your app drawer down here in the bottom right. You can go to Play Store, basically download any app that you want. I have Netflix, YouTube, Google Chrome. I have all 3 map systems, so I use Waze, Google Maps, and then I also have my Apple Maps for when I'm in wireless CarPlay mode. I find that right now I kind of like Waze the most, but it's not the most popular app. The most popular I think is Google Maps, second one's Apple Maps, and Waze comes in third. But I still really like kind of the user interface with Waze. One of the main questions that I receive on this is the microphone. When you get this whole package, it comes with an external mic that you can run and mount in the truck, and I did not use it. Basically, here's the 2 options that this is going to use for a microphone when you're in a phone call via Bluetooth. So down in this lower left corner, there's a little spot here and it says mic. So if you're in wireless CarPlay mode and you get a phone call, you're going to be now utilizing this microphone, which I won't lie, I do sometimes take calls on it, but it's not the greatest. So usually what I recommend is whenever I get a phone call and I'm in wireless CarPlay mode, it's going to pop up here, ask me if I want to answer it. I don't even answer it through here. What I'll do is I'll hit the home button. I'll go back to InTouch, which is sync. And when I come back to sync, that phone call will be displayed right here, and I hit the answer key and I take it through there. Because when you answer the phone call through the sync system, it's going to utilize your OEM microphone. And then once I'm done, I'll just flip back to wireless CarPlay mode. But that's generally what I do, and that just seems to be about the best thing. Unless you want to run that external mic, for me, I don't want to. And Netflix does work on this device. You just need to either use your mobile hotspot on your phone or some sort of data package. You could put a SIM card in the SIM tray and put data on it through there, or you can get like a T-Mobile has a thing called a sync up drive. It plugs into your OBD2 port. And that's basically turning your vehicle into a mobile hotspot. And that's actually what I have currently. I think that's the way to go. Say you're using your mobile hotspot and it's connected to the screen. You can't use wireless CarPlay and your mobile hotspot at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. So if you do decide you want to pay monthly and get some sort of data package, that allows you to still be connected wireless CarPlay and be able to use data at the same time. So for me, the sync up drive is perfect. Now, I have a data package that is kind of a low-key data plan right now that not a lot of people know unless you start doing some Google researching. And that plan is only 15 bucks a month for 30 gigs, which is cheap. And then if you do auto pay, that plan's only 10 bucks a month. So for 10 bucks a month, I have a mobile hotspot in my truck, 30 gigs of data, and it's perfect. In the description below, I'll leave the SOC code that you need. So if you do decide to go that route with T-Mobile, you just need this code, and then when you call in, tell them the code that you want, and they should be able to put it on your plan. They did it for me. The more basic questions that I get, this is going to pertain more to the Raptor. Some people like that splash screen when you first start your Raptor. It comes up, it says Raptor, and it's got like the honeycomb glow. And they ask if you lose that. What I've learned with this display, especially on Android 13, the last thing I was in, that's generally what starts up. If I was in wireless CarPlay mode, usually that pops up first. Before I shut the truck off and I was in sync mode, generally that's what pops up the next time I start the truck. So when that pops up, you do see your splash screen because you're utilizing sync, and that's where that splash screen is. So it just depends on what you use last. I, however, have the custom wallpapers that I made. I kind of have one that's kind of like the splash screen, and basically the reason behind making those was I just wanted to be able to hit the home button and just have a cool Raptor wallpaper, since a lot of us were worried about losing the splash screen on the boot up. This just kind of, I think, fills that void. And I have some for just the regular F150s, and then I have some for, I think, the F250s. I just don't have them posted. So if you guys do want something other than the Raptor wallpaper, just shoot me an email. Now, one of the big things that I really like about this screen, now, I wouldn't have this screen if I lost this feature, and that's keeping the sync system. So if you have Sync 2 or Sync 3, in your 2015 to 2020 F-150, you don't lose it. You just, what you're going to end up doing is your sync module, that stuff's just going to end up adapting to the new screen. You're going to plug it in, and then you're going to be able to utilize your full sync system. And what's great about that is you don't lose any of the sync options. So your Ford Pass app is still going to work. You can still remote start your truck if you use the Ford Pass app. Your heated steering wheel, your massaging seats, my truck don't have it, but if you have that, you don't lose that. All of your OEM buttons work. Your heated seats, your AC seats, you don't lose nothing. And since you're losing nothing with sync, you can still do your sync updates. Basically, all this is doing is it took your sync system and it just plugged it into this screen, and now this screen is just showing you the sync system. So you can still do all of your updates, everything like that. I would say if I had to eliminate my Sync 3 system, I would not be on this display. On that note, the buttons that you're gonna have to move around when you install this screen, you don't lose those either. The only buttons you're going to lose with this is going to be, like, I had a row of media keys right here, which I actually never used anyway. All of my climate controls, you still keep that. This little plastic piece comes with the new screen. You end up putting all your OEM buttons and knobs into this. So you're still utilizing all your OEM equipment, and your OEM buttons that you have right here, they end up just going right up top, and they're all the OEM buttons. They all still function completely fine. Front facing camera, hazards, all of that. This obsession of mine. What I like about this is you can kind of change up your night and day mode. Like right now, sync, I'm on day mode. Come over here. Gonna hit display. Mode, we're in auto. Sometimes I just like to run it so you can change it over to night, and then that way you're stuck with the blue theme. And then all of this stuff that's black, you can swipe down, and right now we're on dark theme. I can uncheck it. Now we're on to the white theme. Ever since I basically got the screen, I've always ran dark mode. For me, it's good in the daylight, but it just kind of looks too much. It stands out too much for me. So all the time, I'm just in dark mode. I think that looks the sleekest. That's what I generally run, dark mode, and I'll probably just mostly leave this in auto for the most part. And just to give you guys a little rundown of the home screen, you can basically customize this whole thing. Like, you can click and hold widgets, wallpapers. It's an Android device, so you can kind of customize it however you want. I like to just keep it bare minimum, just because I like to see my wallpaper pack. These are the four main things that I use: In Touch, which is sync, Car Auto, wireless CarPlay, YouTube, and the settings of the device. You can swipe down from the top, and this is just a little shortcut bar. Internet, hotspot, backlight, reboot system. Reboot system, there's two ways to do this. You can either just hit this button right here and that reboots it, or these screens are kind of known every so often to just black screen and you got nothing. This happens very rarely, but if it does, you just take a little, I have at all time, a little SIM card tray remover, or like a paper clip will work, but there's a button right down here that says reset under mic. You just push that, click it, and that reboots it. So there's two ways to do the reboots. And the reboots, it's like it's a tablet. So you have to do it maybe once a month, if that. Some people say they do it every 2 weeks, but for me, I'm usually 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, it's literally like having a cell phone or tablet. And like those, you have to reset them periodically. For the brightness, you have a shortcut in the upper right. You can just click this and just manually adjust it. Or you can come into your settings, and on your main general page, you got dimmer, and you can adjust it for day and night. I've just got it left at 20, but you can dial that into however you like. There's a couple different ways to use this stereo. You either have the sync way, wireless CarPlay, or just straight up using this, just the apps. Some people just choose to use just the sync, and then they like to just still connect their phone through the Bluetooth, or they'll go wired CarPlay. and they won't even be connected to wireless CarPlay whatsoever. So then that way it just strictly goes through the sync system. For me, I like to use both. So what I like to do is I like to use sync for just Sirius XM. I generally don't really use the Bluetooth of my phone through sync. That's because when you're using Sirius XM through the sync system, that's going off of satellites. Say I use wireless CarPlay, but I'm using the Sirius app through there, then I'm using data. And if I'm on a road trip and we have like no signal, then it kind of sucks. So then I'm back to sync anyway. So for the most part, I just generally use sync for Sirius XM. That's the main thing. Anything else, Maps, Spotify, I'm basically going to be using wireless CarPlay, or I'm going to turn on my mobile hotspot and I'm going to use the apps. Some people don't like to switch between both apps, so that's why they eliminate one or the other. I've heard of a lot of people more or less eliminating the wireless CarPlay and just staying all sync, or some don't even use either. They just literally turn on their mobile hotspot and they have it to where they just used all apps within that. For me though, I just like to use a variety of all three and it just works for me. The only reason I don't go to all sync, because if you're using Maps on here, you're not going to get a full screen, to where if you're using wireless CarPlay or the apps, you get the full screen map. A couple different things between running sync and the Android side of things is the sound settings. So when you're in sync, you're going to be using the Ford settings for their sound equalizer, which sounds good. But if you're using CarPlay or the Android apps, you're going to be using the Android side of settings. There's a couple settings that I have found that dialed in the Android side of things to where now I get louder volume than the sync side of things. So I'll show you guys. If you come down to settings, come up to system, go down to factory settings. Every code is the same, 7890. Okay. And don't change much on here. The only things you would have already changed was your camera signal, and that's to a VGA format. I haven't changed. The only other two things I changed, I don't really think this did anything, but I did original with amp, turn that on, since I have the stock amplifier. Original car with amplifier host default volume, it comes at 30. I switched it up to 36. I had it at 40, but it's too much. And what this does is, whatever your max volume of your speakers are through sync, when you turn this up higher than 30, that allows you to get louder volume than sync. So I had it at 40, and then when you're maxed out, it gets kind of like crackly to where you know you're maxing it out too much. So for me, that 35 to 37 range is pretty good. The other thing that I changed under system is setting guide, factory amp, turn that on. Just because, like I said, I have the factory amplifier. Those few adjustments got my volume on the Android side of things really good, to where now it's just a lot louder. I think it sounds really good. You can come down here and you have the DSP app, which is an equalizer. I'm just on normal mode. I've kind of messed with some of these presets and then I just end up going back to normal mode. I just haven't taken enough time to dial those things in. And as for the USB ports, you have the factory ones and then you have the ones that are ran over in the glove box. Charging on them both is slow. So you could use one for data transfers, the one in your glove box, to transfer data over to the Android device, or you could use your factory USB ports. But then I find that if you're running wireless CarPlay and you're plugged in, it kind of just messes with things. And honestly, I just use an aftermarket car charger. That ends up charging my phone faster, and then it doesn't mess with any of the wired and wireless CarPlay connections. A lot of ask about the backup camera. I would say it's still about the same. Throw it in reverse and you'll see how fast it goes. I was kind of hoping the quality would be a little better. It might be a little better because the screen is higher quality. Since it's a wider screen than factory, this is actually, you get a bigger picture than you get on your stock screens. I wouldn't say there's a gain in quality. The width of it and the clarity you get from the screen makes it a little better. And the 360 cam works, hit your plus. That works. And when you go to the Android Play Store, you can download games. You can add an aftermarket controller and you can literally play games on this. I don't really do that. I'm not really huge into games. Kind of something cool if you're on lunch break or bored and just want to kill some time. I've seen some people kind of talk about their wireless CarPlay connection speed time. Mine's usually always pretty quick, like not even 30 seconds. There was no cuts right there. That was just straight up connecting to wireless CarPlay. Very quick. One of my favorite things with this display though, when you're on a road trip or something like that, you want to utilize YouTube and say another app at the same time. Obviously probably navigation. So we're going to open up YouTube. Definitely click on people's videos that know what they're talking about, that like this guy. Now that you got your video open, hit your home button. It's going to shoot down here. So now we're going to click here, open up our apps, go into Waze. So now that we got Waze open, we got YouTube open. So what I do is I get this to a full screen. And sometimes this can be just a little finicky, but I've found that if I'm on Waze and then open YouTube, it seems to split screen better. So once you have both your apps open, this right here is going to show you everything that you have open. We have Waze, we have YouTube. So now just click and hold this little button down here. And now it's going to say tap another app to split screen. So Waze is the main one. And then we're just going to click on YouTube. And there you have it. So now you have your navigation up. This is going to work with Google Maps as well. I just prefer Waze right now. And now we have YouTube up. And then you can still just utilize this and go through other videos. You don't actually have to get out of it. Click another video and boom. So it's really cool being able to, because even when you're running YouTube just by itself, it's only going to be about that big. You can't expand it bigger. You're going to be losing information. The split screen feature is nice. The only thing with Android 13, you can't split screen, sync, or wireless CarPlay from the factory defaults. I don't know why they did away with that with the Android 13. But if you download a third-party app from the Play Store that allows you to split screen, there are some apps that will allow you to just choose an app that you want to split screen if you really, really want to use those apps. But for me right now, when I'm road tripping, I'm just mobile hotspot for a lot of the times, and I'll throw up YouTube or Netflix and then split screen with whatever Maps app I'm using. So that's a little rundown of the F150 Tesla display. The customizations are endless. Once you get this thing dialed in, I mean, there's just unlimited things you can do. I believe this thing will work for everyone. You just kind of got to figure out what works best for you, and you'll definitely enjoy having this screen. Wrigley, do you got anything for him? He does not. So if you guys have any questions, drop them down below. Shoot me an email. I'll get you squared away. I'll drop a link down below on where to purchase this screen. And yeah, that's all we got for you today. Peace.
Scratching the surface, this obsession of mine.